Hey, what's happening, everybody? Robert Phoenix here, back on the case, broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas. What's going on out there, everybody? Welcome to Tuesday. Tuesday is the Monday around these parts. Let me just do a little refreshy over here. Let's see what we got happening. Slowly but surely, the signal is coming through on both worlds. Here we go. Let's go over to the YouTube side of things. We have anybody showing up here yet? We got 4 people watching. Sorry, running a little bit late today. I apologize. I was up late last night. Astro flight in Dubai. Buenos dias. And there's the lovely AC, Anna Shaban. What's going on, Anna? How are you today? Good morning. Good morning. We should have some video here shortly over on the YouTube side of things. Let me just look. Well, we've got the please stand by over on the 15-minute side. Am I streaming? Yes, I am streaming now. All right. All right. The satellite link up is happening. There's 108 Dragon. Hi, Judy from Missouri. Good morning. I am excited to learn about nasty environmental health effects. Bioacoustics is a good solution. Paulette, why don't you put your website down there in the chat so people can check out what you do. Morning, Justice. Hello, Kelly Kells. What's happening? Throw your link in there, Paulette. Paulette's got some good stuff with bioacoustic research. I did a promotion with Paulette not long ago. That's when I was doing the fundraiser to get the streaming happening. Hey, it's Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Joe Rogan's up. I'm not sure what that means. Am I Joe Rogan or is Joe Rogan's time up? I don't know what that means. And I don't want to interpret it falsely. Let's put it that way. Just kind of waiting for all the kids to show up here in the clubhouse. There's Tesmerk 1. Good morning to you. So, Judy, how is life in Missouri? Where's Jenny Beasley? Hello, Jenny. How's life in Missouri, Judy? Are you digging it? Paulette, yes. Starting refreshed in Missouri. Yeah, absolutely. You're about to give me an astrology reading this morning in my dreams before someone woke me up. Dang! That's a bummer. You're about to get an astrology reading for free in your dreams? Oh, man. Okay. Well, at least I can show up and start the process. Definitely start the process. Let's see. Anybody else going to be wandering on through these parts? No refresh, but here. Oh, Judy. Judy, you'll get there. You're there. God bless you. What a journey. What a journey that must have been. Holy smokes, man. That's like a Dust Belt journey. It's definitely like a Dust Belt journey. My great-grandparents on my father's side made that Dust Belt journey. Judy, I'm on my way back to Texas from Missouri right now. Oh, look at that. Balancing all things. There's 1966 Luciana. Good morning. Good morning to you. Seems like we're starting to reach some level of critical mass. Some level of critical mass here. All right, we got a lot to get into today. Let me give you guys an update on some of the local stuff that's been happening here on the fluoride front. So yesterday, there's a gal that I work with. I've talked about her before. Her name is Jeanette, and watching Jeanette go through some really powerful and profound changes by getting involved in a local issue. And when I met Jeanette, Jeanette had let's put it this way, about as close as you can to having a handicap when it came to public speaking, and her private speaking was, how shall I say this, very difficult. She had a throat issue, thyroid issue, health issues, which is one of the reasons why she got involved in this anti-fluoride campaign that we're now, really into at this point. And so what Jeanette did is, what we had to do is we had to go out and we had to get a number of voters. We had to get 5%, I believe, of the city, not the county, but the city's registered voters. And we had to get them to sign a petition so that we could amend the city charter. Okay, that's what we did. And then all those signatures had to be validated by the city clerk that they were indeed registered voters. So we had petitions around town, and then some of us went out to the streets. I did a little bit of it. Some of us went door to door. I did none of that. Jeanette went door to door, and she was totally into it. Here is this woman who's got kind of a throat condition. She's got a thyroid condition. She's got kind of in some ways, a fear of public speaking. And she went out and she got probably close to about 500 signatures. I think we wound up getting about maybe 750, maybe 800 signatures, some of which were not qualified. Jeanette got the bulk of them. And over time, I've watched her transform from somebody who, and I'll be honest with you, it was really painful to listen to Jeanette. You think it was difficult listening to Darren from Liverpool? Jeanette, because of a physical affliction, was even more difficult to listen to. And yet what she's done is she's opened up her throat chakra. Really amazing. Really amazing to watch. Now she's fearless. She'll talk about fluoride in front of anybody. She gets up, she talks in front of groups now. I mean, it is really, really powerful to watch the transformation occur. Now, we may not win. I hope we do. I hope we do win, because putting a hell of a lot of effort and time into it. But the transformation of Jeanette is kind of worth the journey in a lot of ways. It's really amazing to watch. We tend to talk about things at kind of high levels, quantum levels, timelines, paradigm shifts, the shadow, soul retrieval, a lot of, very kind of high level conceptual reframing, rewiring inside of ourselves. And here's a person who I said Mercury retrograde yesterday or 2 days ago. She says, "What's that?" Okay. And that's not to say that people have to know what Mercury retrograde is. I'm just giving you that as a reference point. She has no idea. She'd watch this show and she probably would scratch her head about 3/4 of it. Okay. So the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because the power of transformation and change is not necessarily dependent upon, at times, the tools that are at our disposal, because all those tools are already internal anyway, and what we do is we give voice to them. We talk about them, we contextualize them, we bring them into the realm of ideas so that we can share them, so we can validate our experience, right? And that's what we do. And what Jeanette has done is been the change in action. It's beautiful to watch. Really, really beautiful. Now, of course, she also happens to be very religious, and so she's being driven by her faith as well. Her friend pulled me aside a couple of weeks ago when we were out at the 4th of July parade passing out cold water to people. Pulled me aside. She says, "You wouldn't believe the transformation of Jeanette. Oh my God. If you would have seen, I've grown up. I've known her for years. She's a different person now." Well, she's the same person. She's just more of Jeanette, right? And that's how the game works. You can be the same you. You're just more of you. Ultimately, that's what we do. And then the light within pushes out the darkness. It pushes out the ignorance. It pushes out all the stuff that is static. And what's left is love and truth. And that's the inner game. And you can understand and talk about and know the things that we talk about, and that's fine. At the end of the day, hats off to Jeanette. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because she sent me this this screenshot. I wish I could put it up here now. I was going to do it, but I really wanted to get this show on the road. Maybe I'll bring it up tomorrow and have it up tomorrow. Anyway, she sent me the screenshot, and weather.com has an app, and you can advertise on their app. So the American Dental Association is starting to advertise on the weather.com app about our election in November here in Fredericksburg. We are on the radar now, and the ADA is spending money. They're spending money to buy ads to defeat us, okay? And I think that is so cool. That's so cool, because now they're out. They've come out of the bushes. You know, we have these dentists in town. So there's this one guy in town who's very anti-fluoride. And we just want to get him in a debate. We want to, you know, we want to turn him into sushi, to be honest with you. Because you got to do these things sometimes. Right? It has to happen. I could, again, it's out of love. I have no ill feelings towards the man, but their position is tenuous. And they, by the way, they are involved in some form of slander with us. They're distorting the facts. They think that this is so funny. This is funny shit. They think that we are part of some major group that is based out of Austin, that has large backing from a national syndicate, and that this group is now gathering forces and money, and they're going through the hill country, and they're going to change the fluoridation laws in the water, and they're nefarious, and they're probably social justice warriors. They're radicals. They're probably from California. I swear to God, this is what this guy is saying, more or less. Of course, Jesus. Of course, I'm dealing with hyperbole. That was a very interesting entry, Jasper. Would you like to say hi to everybody now that you're up here? I know you're going to mess with my screen. Would you like to say hello to everybody? He's right there. Okay, let me just move this so you can come down here to the lower level. You can say hello to everybody. I know you want to say hi. What am I going to do with this cat? Anyway, so we're on the radar. We're on the radar, which means we are going to need some more money to go up against them and deal with them and their advertising. We need to counter them. This is exciting, man. This is where it's at. This is where the rubber hits the road, and we get to prove ourselves. We get to prove the model, and hopefully with enough support, we can carry this ball across the finish line. And if Jeanette has any saying that there's no other option involved, isn't that right, Jasper? Jasper, wouldn't you like non-fluoridated water? Oh, I know you would. I know you would. All the kiddies in America would like non-fluoridated water. That's right. Absolutely right. All right, why don't we get into the bulk of today's show? So, obviously, Jeffrey Epstein is the cause celeb. He is somebody that has been in the 24/7 news cycle, will continue to be while the documents, the 2,000-page document is being sifted through by all the spooks, the legal aids, the cutouts, the limited hangs, anybody and everybody who's invested in Jeffrey Epstein. They're trying to get their hands on that material so they can see who's actually in it and what it's about. And that's going on right now as we speak. So when we think about Epstein, what do we think about? We think about, of course, underage girls. We think about blackmail, extortion, spies. We think about MI6. We think about the Mossad. We think about the CIA, maybe the Defense Department, DynCorp. And then we get into government. And we get into government. And we get into officials in government who are blackmailed, extorted, and blackmailed. And this has been a kind of a theme that's been running around in my head for the last couple of weeks since the Epstein thing has been going And one of the things that I have kind of stumbled across in some ways, although it's always kind of been there, is the level of infestation inside the body politic in this country, the United States. The level of infestation is off the charts. I mean, it is crazy who's been here, have been hanging out here, how they've influenced our government, our foreign policy, our national policy, mostly through extortion and blackmail. And this goes all the way back to the Cold War era, probably before, but it goes back to the Cold War era and the insertion of the Soviet intelligence agency, the KGB, the Cheka, a number of other groups that are also connected to Eastern Bloc intelligence, not just the KGB, but mostly the KGB. And so keep that in mind, that the KGB has been running operations in this country for years. The TV series The Americans has a lot to do with it. And part of what the KGB would do is they would basically get people to turn. People from all walks of life. And how did they get them to turn? They extorted them and blackmailed them. Sometimes they appealed to their philosophical leanings, and that communism, and this is a common theme in this movie that I'm going to play some clips from and then comment on, that communism is that in communism, one of the common themes was the fighting of fascism. That communism was the only tool, was the greatest force to fight fascism. Fascism being thus equated with capitalism. And so part of what drew people to selling their souls, essentially, to the communists, was the fact that they wanted to fight capitalism. But again, or fascism, again, these are intellectual ideas. And the intellectuals are the ones that ultimately, from an idea perspective, wind up turning. Okay? Do I think that this has changed? No, I don't think it's changed at all. I think this country is infested with spies from other parts of the world. The Russians, I believe, and you could quote me as being completely wrong, and that's okay. I believe the Russians decided that they were going to kind of go in this different direction and look as if there was the fall of the Soviet Union. And what they did is they basically changed their brand. They changed their brand. And I think that they're still invested in what they're doing and have been doing for decades. Right? That's my 2 cents around this. You may disagree with me. It's okay. The Chinese are here. Chinese have spies. There's spies everywhere. They infest our system. And they infest our system, and then they use leverage, extortion, and blackmail. And that's just one group, or one kind of, how do I say this? One kind of conglomeration of influence. And there's more. So over the course of the next couple of shows, I'm going to continue to get into this. I'm going to get into the infestation of the United States, this government. And I'm going to show you what we're dealing with and how it is absolutely tearing apart our immune system and making us much more vulnerable as part of this collective identity in some ways. Look, people say, well, that's politics. Well, we're in a political game in some ways, right? This is the world part. The other part is the not of this world part. That's part of the dichotomy and the dance that we're working on to be in this world but not of it. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to preface this now. The footage I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to play 2 clips today because they're kind of long in some ways. is from a 1982 documentary called KGB Connections. And it was produced by the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and in conjunction with ABC. Now remember, this is 1982, so we've got about 7 years before the fall of the wall, the theoretical fall of the wall. And by the way, Yuri Bezmenov is in this documentary as well. Now it was aired in Canada, but it was not aired in the United States. It's 2 hours long, not aired in the United States. Because ABC felt like people wouldn't be all that interested in it. If this documentary had aired during primetime television in 1982, I think it could have been a game changer. Because what it gets into, and it doesn't really come right out and say this, but it gets into that Anthony Sutton world where there's high-level collusion between the U.S. and the former Soviet Union. It comes out. You have to put the pieces together, but it's there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to a character named Heda Messing. And she is a trip. She's a total trip. And it basically details her involvement in communism, why she got involved in it, and what she did when she was in the U.S. Now, she eventually decides that she wants to defect, and she does, which is how they get this interview footage. This woman's a trip, okay? So I'm going to play this to you. This will give you some insight into just one tiny cell, a one-person cell inside the United States who was tasked to flip Americans and get inside information, insider trading, secrets of the state and corporations, and then pass them on to the Russians, the Soviets. All right, here's Heda Messing. Check this out. She's a trip.
Noel Field joined the State Department as a Foreign Service officer in 1926. During the 1930s, he became a Soviet agent. Lawrence Duggan was head of the Latin American desk of the State Department and was a political advisor to the Secretary of State. He, too, was a Soviet agent. Both Duggan and Field were brought into a Soviet espionage ring by the same recruiter, a woman of amazing persuasiveness.
I got them Noel Field, and I got them Larry Duggan, and I got them all, you know, sort of small fry, like Brian, and, you know, technical personnel, several women that were mail drops, and so on and so forth. And it was always done, for example, with women, it was mostly done with sex. I would always send somebody who was handsome, and they generally went to bed with whatever it was, and it worked.
During the 1930s, Heda Messing was Soviet espionage's most effective recruiting agent in America. This is her only television interview, filmed shortly before her death in 1981. During the 1920s, she married into the Communist Party in Europe, falling in love with its intrigue and fellowship. Her first husband was Gerhard Eisler, a top official of the Communist international espionage arm, the Comintern.
When you were 17 and you joined the Communist Party, or became a member of that
Yes.
circle, was it an emotional rather than a political conversion?
Only emotional, not political at all. Didn't understand a thing about politics. As I said, I would have understood this one sentence. It is a theory, an ideology married into the party.
But for somebody who didn't understand it, you became one of their most effective operators.
Later, much, much, much later. Much later, when I understood much more, and when really effectiveness is so closely married, connected to fascism. I was effective because there was fascism. And fascism had to be fought. It took me a long time, and I didn't want to realize it, that actually I was not fighting fascism. It was all baloney. The Russians used me. But to admit that to yourself is, of course, very degrading, self-degrading. You hesitate very much to do that. So for a long time, I pretended that I believed that this is the way to fight fascism, and I acted it out.
Okay, well, let's go into some of the areas where you were very successful. You came over to America in the early 1930s. What did you do, and how did you get into that circle where you could operate effectively?
Well, first of all, when I came, I knew people. You see, I knew people. I'd met people in Moscow. I'd met many Americans in Moscow. I was a functionary. For example, I was called on by the Comintern to entertain important Americans when they came to Moscow. So I had connections, personal connections.
The connections were with those in the American government. So Haida Massing, closely controlled by the Russians, working in New York City, and armed with a sharp wit and a fierce determination, went on to recruit Lawrence Duggan, one of the senior members of the U.S. State Department.
You know, the thing that is so interesting is it wasn't difficult. I called him because I understood, he was a friend of Noel Field, and said that I wanted to see him, and I went into the State Department, into his room, and we made an appointment. And I approached him directly, hard. Larry, I said, I needn't tell you about fascism. You know it all. You know it better than I, because you see all the material I don't see. We want your help. Will you help us? And he said, yes. I have certain conditions, but yes, I will help you. Now, I will give you all the material that I think might be of interest to you and the Russians. He knew immediately who I was. He was nobody's fool. And only I will not give you the material per se. I will dictate it to somebody, and the somebody has to be English-speaking and a very good shorthand. There it was. I couldn't believe it.
While recruiting Noel Field, Haida Massing uncovered another Soviet spy ring in Washington, of which she had been unaware.
I had worked on Noel Field for a long time. I had listened to Wagner, which I hate. I had read Freud, which I dislike, and discussed fine points of Freud with him, really lying in my teeth. And because I wanted him. I wanted to do a good job. And I also liked the family. I liked her better than him. He was a little bit, although he was rather good looking, very tall and very sort of gentlemanlike, to me, he was a little bit unappetizing. It must have been a body smell. I don't know what it was, but anyhow, I liked her better. She was also more honest. She was a little dumb. And one day, I said, Noel, it's about time that you have more or less agreed that you will work with me. Now, I think we ought to start. And he said, Haida, I wanted to tell you this, and I hesitated because I know it will upset you, but I have decided that I will not work with you, but I would rather work with somebody who does exactly the same thing you do, who is, however, with me in the same department. And it would be so much easier, technically, to convey whatever I have to give to this person. And I said, who is this person? Of course, terrified. Here was my investment of 1 year studying Wagner and Freud for that. Anyhow, I said, who is this man? And he said, I don't think you know him. His name is Al-Jahiz.
He was an advisor to President Roosevelt at the crucial Yalta Conference. and was the man who flew to Washington with the historic charter documents of the United Nations Organizing Conference in San Francisco, where he had served as temporary Secretary General. Alger Hiss was a rising star in the State Department and director of the Office of Special Political Affairs. He was never far from center stage. After allegations were made of his communist activities, he appeared before the House Un-American Activities Committee.
I am not and never have been a member of the Communist Party.
Throughout two famous trials and a conviction for perjury, he has steadfastly proclaimed his innocence. And today there is a strong lobby in the United States to overturn his convictions.
Things Mr. Chambers charged, except that I knew him briefly.
Were you ever a communist?
No.
This man's memory is rather different. Nathaniel Weil was a member of the same Communist Party cell as Alger Hiss.
I want to ask you if you ever met Alger Hiss.
Oh, yes, about 30 times or so, 30 or 40.
Under what circumstances?
Well, I'm speaking about, you see, the cell met every week. And attendance was a duty to be taken very seriously. You had to have an extremely good excuse for not being there. So that if one assumes that I was in this unit for 9 months, and that there was a meeting every week, it works out to about 30 or 40 times.
But Haida Massing, trying to root Noel Field, had no idea that Alger Hiss was also working for the Soviets. Each of the communist cells were small and carefully separated. In this case, both Alger Hiss and Haida Massing were trying to recruit the same man.
I met Alger Hiss because Noel called me a week after I'd been there in New York and said, "Can you come to Washington? I have a dinner date for you and Alger Hiss at my house." And I said, "Of course I'll come." And I came, and I met him. And the beginning was that he said, "So you are the girl that is trying to take Noel away from me." And I said, "Well, you are the man who is trying to take Noel away from me." And then I said, "I suppose, I don't know the exact words, don't forget, after all, I'm female and I'm a fighter, and I won't let that happen so easily." And he grinned, and then we had all sorts of conversations. We stood alone, he and I, at the window and spoke, and the farewell was that I said, or he said, and I don't remember who said what, but I think he said, "Whoever gets Noel, after all, we are working for the same boss."
So that was Haida Massing, and that's just one clip from the movie KGB Connections. I'm going to play another clip tomorrow on the morning show, 15 Minutes of Flame here with Robert Phoenix. And she's actually quite hilarious. She's very, very funny. And there are some things about that clip that I think really bear some attention. First of all, communism apparently cannot exist without its other, which is fascism. Cannot exist without fascism. And what happened during World War II? We saw the rise of both communism and fascism. And fascism being, of course, the Third Reich version of fascism. So what we have here is the Hegelian dialectic in action. Problem, reaction, solution. We have the dichotomy of polarity. We have the state-sponsored rise of both factions. If you look at what happened with Germany post-World War I, they were in shambles, absolute shambles. The economy was ruined. The Weimar Republic was distributing moral decay, financial ruin. That was the governing body at that time. The Germans were demoralized. And then you had basically the Frankfurt School, or the Frankfurt Group, the Frankfurt School coming in, which were, part of that Weimar Republic, right? Leipzig. And they were the engineers behind it. And so what we have is we have the investment in Germany by companies like Ford and IBM and IG Farben. They built up Germany. Meanwhile, they're building up Russia at the same time. So we have these two massive forces that are going to ultimately, theoretically, square off against one another and define the dialectic of the good, which was the communists standing up against the totalitarian system, which at that time was Germany and the fascists. And so you hear Heidi Messing talking about fascism, fascism, fascism. And that's how she was able to recruit the guy from the State Department and Noel Field because of their desire to fight fascism. And then the other part of this is the 1-2 punch here. The other part is that ideologically, it sounds great on paper. Redistribution of resources, everybody gets wonderful things, beautiful ideas. New, right? It's the revolution of the mind. And so from a twofold perspective, one, it has the social function of defeating evil, or so-called evil. And two, it has the antidotes to not only defeating evil, but giving people a sense of hope for the future, that they have an investment, that there's been this redistribution of power, redistribution of wealth, and the inherent fascism that's part of the system that is kind of the overriding system, or the organizing principle, will be defeated, routed, flushed out. And there'll be a new, it's kind of like a political colonic. That's what it's like. And this is ultimately the ideology that is interpenetrating what's happening today in this country with the rise of Antifa. Because what they're doing is people are responding to the same kinds of ideological ethics, or the ethos, the ideological ethos that Heidi Messing is talking about. And there's an appeal to some sense of so-called justice, because fascism now has a face, and that face is Donald Trump, if you believe the fascists, because everything that the media has done has portrayed Trump in a fascistic light. They've portrayed Trump as Hitler. They portray Trump as racist. They portray Trump as sexist, fascist, homophobic. Everything that every stripe of the left and the so-called resistance would be invested in, Trump shows up. So what's really interesting is that what we're seeing now is we're seeing that the so-called left is showing its hand. Because a lot of this stuff has been underground for a long time. It's been here. It has been here. And it's still here. And the so-called left has been underground. The interesting thing about Heidi Messing, when she was talking about Alger Hiss, was that the communists had all these cells all over the place, and nobody knew who they were, really. I mean, you had your cell and your group, and that was pretty much it. And then there were all these other cells, and they were all, answering to the same bureau, right? Same, commandant or whatever they call it. That's what the same bureau chief. But nobody knew who they were. So when Alger Hiss and Heidi Messing were involved in sort of trying to recruit Noel Field, they found out that each other was kind of working for the same team. That's how the game works. You don't know. You don't know. So what we're seeing now is kind of like this faction or this group is being smoked out. That's what's happening. They're being smoked out. And people who would have an ideological attachment to communism, socialism, that they would automatically sort of be attracted. It's almost like a sting. It's almost like a very sophisticated sting in some ways. I feel like Trump is involved in some level of entrapment. That's part of, I think, what is going on here. And so now we've got a bunch of people that are rising to the surface, and we're beginning to see now kind of what's going on behind the scenes. They're showing their hands because they're feeling as though their paradigm and their reality is threatened. And one of the things, I plan on doing this for a couple of weeks because there's so much to kind of uncover here, that one of the sleeper cells that I think has taken over this country is the mayoral level of governance across the United States. I was watching, if you guys ever want to just like, lose your shit or get not freaked out, lose your shit, you kind of be shocked, watch Live Leak. Watch Live Leak for an hour. And you'll see stuff on Live Leak that'll blow your mind. And not pretty. Not pretty. The latest I saw on Live Leak this week was right here in Austin, and down on 7th Street, which is a heavy street. Well, a lot of homeless, a lot of druggies. They hang out, they do drugs. It's not pretty. It is not pretty. It's really a blight on the human condition. It's a blight on the city too. And I was watching this Live Leak, and this guy and these women are getting into a beef, and they're beating each other up and screaming and yelling. And then this guy gets involved, and he starts pushing and shoving. And then next thing you know, he whips out a small revolver and starts shooting this gal in the thigh. Right in Austin. This is just days ago. And if I was the mayor of Austin, if I was Stephen Adler, I would be shocked. I'd be ashamed, and I would do everything in my power to clean that shit up. But does he and will he? No. Because the mayors of this country have basically been ordered to help create a cesspool and then tell the police to stand down. This is what's happening in New York City right now with de Blasio. And there are people who are throwing buckets of water, buckets of concrete. They're starting to throw it at cops in New York City. And de Blasio says, "Oh, you got to stand down. You can't do anything." And the police answer to the police chief, commissioner of police, who answers to the mayor. The mayor lays down the law inside that city. It's another level of infestation. I'm going to cover this. But I just wanted to show you Heidi Massey because she's just one person who is involved in flipping and turning Americans, which is quite easy from an ideological perspective. Because communism/socialism provides this panacea for a better world, and it is the tip of the spear for fighting fascism. Fascism is being defined by the capitalist system. And look, I'll be clear. This is not a perfect place, okay? It's not a perfect place. But it still has some remnants of at least being marginally free. Like, I could talk about this. Couldn't talk about this in China. I couldn't do this in China. Probably couldn't even do it in Russia. But I can do it here. And that's just still the litmus at this point in time. At least for now. It's getting tougher. It's getting much tougher to talk about this stuff here. But I wanted to show you that. And here is the part that is really disheartening for me. When you look at the people, and you're going to see this, I'll show you more and more examples of this over the next few days. When you look at the people who are selling this country out, at a high level, governments, documents, the people who are selling this country out, 90% of them are white males. And that, to me, that is something I'm not down with. I'm looking at sort of this representation of my body and my skin and all this stuff in this lifetime, right? It's how I incarnate it. And these are the tools that I'm working with. This is the social context. When I look back and I see those assholes and what they did, it's like, shame on you. Shame on you fuckers. You know, because you let us down. You let us down, you let the country down, and you let all these other people down. Doesn't matter what color, what religion, what creed they were, are, let them down. Sold them out. Shame on you. And shame on your house. You know, this is really what is, to me, a crime. It's a terrible crime. It's a crime against the state. It's a crime against humanity. It's 40 pieces of silver is what it is. And you're going to see, as I go through some of these clips over the next few days, you're going to see that part of the tool, and this gets into the Epstein thing, is sex. And the extortion around sex. Both straight and gay sex. Now you throw in the kids, and then you throw into the subhuman treatment of the kids, and all the other stuff that goes along with it, and people are like Gumby. They're bendable, they're pliable, they'll do whatever the fuck people tell them to do. And you wonder why this system is broken and broken down. It's because of a level of infestation that's occurred over the years and is still occurring. Our immunity is threatened. Our collective immunity is at risk because we're rotting from the inside out. And those clips show you just one small example. And there are many, many more. A lot more. And I'll be sharing them with you over the course of the next few days. So what do we do? Well, first of all, you got to get clean. You got to get clean. You got to be able to, you got to walk the line, as Johnny Cash once said. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you got to walk the line. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. Got to walk the line. If you can't do that, then you're going to be open to the same kind of infestation or the same kind of immunity that's being jeopardized. Jeopardize immunity. And we start with us, right? You're your own kind of sleeper cell, and you're waking up, and that's what's happening. You know, the spiritual sleeper cells are finally waking up, and now it's time, and we're seeing the game, and people are getting smoked out. We're seeing what's been behind the scenes for years. It's very interesting, very, very interesting. So I'm going to show you more clips of this over the course of the next few days, and we're going to get into this. We're going to get into some other stuff too. We're going to get into predictive programming. We're going to get into the sort of the mayoral side of things, and how the mayoral network is really on the front lines of this kind of infestation of our body politic, our governing Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. It's all there. I'm going to get into predictive programming from the 1970s and 80s, where you'll see sort of what's the kind of the social caste, C-A-S-T-E, is being laid out in futurism and science fiction from those times. So we'll also go over the news of the day. I just wanted to give us some focus here. So Mercury retrograde. We're going to do this pretty much between now and probably when Mercury goes direct. It'll be a good little exercise for us. All right, let me check in with you guys in the chat room. What's going on there? Left ends up in the communistic version of tyranny. The right's version of tyranny is fascism. Yep, I agree. Absolutely. What is Cato says? Seen at least one or two close to death, if not actually dead, getting scraped off the pavement. Wow. Cato, I moved from Washington, home state, 10 years ago. Love Seattle, haven't been back since. I moved. It's so sad to hear. There are these videos, I think, by Mark Dice, interviews people at the beach. Yes, Mark is good at that. Seattle used to be chill, a lot of normal folk. Yeah, man, I used to live in Seattle. I know I was in Seattle in the late 80s, 89, 90. What else do we have here? I'm out for a walk. I feel like every time I turn the corner, there might be some junkies shooting up. That's terrible. Concrete with blood would make it gross, but not really contaminated. What else do we have? Do USA are still learning subject at school? I don't think they do, Astrofly. I don't think they do. Not in every school system. What else? It's like the mayor's life. They are allowing it to happen. Something major in Portland, Seattle Kitty. So you guys are on it. You're totally on it. There's a lot of aggressive paneling here. Yeah, absolutely. They've allowed this. It's enabling. It's totally enabling. They want to turn our cities. You know, these are theoretically, our shining kinds of achievements, right? They want to turn them into monuments of degradation and filth and laugh all the way. All the way. Laughing all the way. Ha, 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 ha. All right. So we're doing this as an expose over the course of the next few days, running up to Mercury retrograde. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to see more clips. Some of the stuff I'm going to show you will blow your mind, especially when I get to the weather underground, and you'll see. You'll see the levels of collusion there. All right. Thanks, everybody. Hey, if you feel like donating to our fund over it's on cleanwaterfred.com. We have a GoFundMe page. Every little bit helps. I want to thank. I had Brian Mertz on, and he was a guest a few weeks back with the Texas Caregivers and his new group and organization. Brian's helped us out, and he's been a really important part of our group here. From helping us out with Houston. From the Houston area. So Brian, I just want to give you a shout out for being on our side. And every little bit helps, by the way. $5, $10, $20. We got to go up. We got to keep pace now with the ADA. They've got a big pocketbook. So if you feel like donating, go over to the cleanwaterfred.com website. There's a GoFundMe there. Every little bit helps. $5, $10, whatever you can throw in there. And let's do this. If you do a donation over $25 and over, we will send you a Clean Water Fred T-shirt. How's that? You get a free T-shirt, Clean Water Fred, for any donation $25 and over. We'll make it worth your while. Okay. The slots are starting to fill up for the Harvest Moon Hill Country events. Some more people have thrown down their deposit. So if you want to get on that. Mercury retrograde is coming to an end here, and so August 1st, I believe, will be a time when you can move forward safely with both your travel arrangements and getting in and getting a reservation. So I encourage you to do that. I've got about 50 to 55 slots open. If you want to share a room with somebody, let me know. And if I run out of rooms, I will look into getting a Airbnb place somewhere near the hotel in Fredericksburg. So we'll make sure that we get enough people there. Let's put it that way. Whether you're there on site or whether I've got a nice location, Airbnb set up, which would be cool, have your own house, all that good stuff. We'll figure that out. Okay? All right, I'm out of here. Thank you, everybody. It's great to be back. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You are you. And keep on waking up. That's all I can say. Keep those high beams on. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take good care.